I didn't see any profit from my rentals until about 10 years later when I was able to sell them when the market just went out of control. But if you look at that previous 10 years, it was a darn forced savings account. Like all my discretionary income went to fixing these houses.
There is a new American dream. One that doesn't involve working till you're 65 before you start enjoying life. If you're someone looking for ways to regain control over your time and check off that bucket list now, you're in the right place. We share tips from experts on investing, personal finance, and mindset so that you can finally have the freedom to work less and live more. This is the Freedom Investing Podcast with your host, Chris Toribio.
What's going on, everyone? This is Chris Toribio with the Freedom Investing Podcast, and I am so happy you're here to join us for another amazing episode. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the show. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with our latest episodes. Moving on to today's guest, we have Brent Bowers. Brent is an investor and coach with a focus on buying and selling vacant land. As an Army officer with over 8 years of experience, Brent was spending a great deal of time away from his family, and he knew he needed to make some changes in order to be more present with his wife and children. Brent began investing in real estate as a way to support his family while having more time to spend with them. In a short period of time, Brent was able to expand his business, hire a team, and still had more time to spend with his family. Brent now helps other investors learn the ins and outs of buying land. Brent, welcome to the show, man. Before we dive into it, give us a quick 2-minute rundown of who you are, your background, and where you are in your journey to achieving time freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Brent Bowers. I've always been an entrepreneur, a visionary, and I just wanted to, do great things. And as we do this in life, we build these things, and we're always out of balance. I feel like we're always out of balance, whatever we're doing, whether it's like, okay, this week I'm focusing on being a better dad. Oh man, next week I'm going to focus on, getting physically fit again or eating healthier. The week after that, oh my gosh, like I need to make more money in life. So I feel like we're always looking for that balance. And that's me. I have not done the most amazing job at it, but I'm always learning. And, I started in real estate in 2007. I got pretty beat up in 2008. Ended up joining the military, did multiple combat deployments, back-to-back deployments, ended up losing my first marriage due to always being gone, and, kind of started over again with an amazing woman, the love of my life. We got married, we had a baby, and guess what? History was repeating itself. I was always gone, always training for that next deployment, always training and getting promoted for that next, little pay bump. And I noticed I was getting back out of balance again. And when my first baby was born, a little over 7 years ago now, I decided I'm going to build a financial fortress around me and my family that gives me, first of all, financial freedom, but second, being most important, was time freedom. And I did that with buying and selling vacant raw land and doing seller financing on it. And I tell you, once a week, someone tries to talk me out of that. It's like, there's a better way, blah, blah, blah. Show me. You show me a better way than what I've been able to do. So that's why I'm on these podcasts. I just want to tell people there's so much opportunity out there. There's so many answers to have time freedom. And that's why I love the Freedom Investing Podcast.
I love that, Brent. And there's a lot to unpack there, but also vacant land is something that I don't think we've had a guest talk about that type of asset within the real estate asset class itself. So I'm really excited about this show. And that only goes to show, furthermore, that there's so many different ways to be profitable within the real estate business, right? You don't have to stick to, just multifamily. You don't have to stick with industrial office. There's so many ways to be profitable. A lot of times it's just a matter of picking what works best for you. Yeah, and so absolutely. I want to first start by saying, when you first started, it sounded like you were in real estate to begin with. So what was that like? This is back in 2007.
Yeah, I first started in 2007. I actually started with rental properties. And let me tell you, I've heard a lot of things, buy rentals, never sell them. That is a really that's a very patient man's game or woman's game, because I didn't see any profit from my rentals until about 10 years later when I was able to sell them when the market just went out of control. But if you look at that previous 10 years, it was a darn forced savings account. Like all my discretionary income went to fixing these houses. I could set my watch on something's going to break every 6 months from now. And, I was doing that whole, okay, as long as it's netting me $200 to $300 a month after the mortgage and taxes. No, that doesn't work. There's always a septic system that's going to go out, a roof leak, or an air conditioner is going to break, a water heater is going to break, a tenant's going to trash the house. And I pretty much got out of that in 2008 because I was not able to pay my bills because it was just, I literally had a lawn service. I had a lawn service that was making money, and I got my real estate license in 2007. And I bought that first property that came across my desk. I actually made an offer on it. And then, to actually get income, I was going to list other people's houses and help them buy houses while I was building my empire. Well, 2008 really shook me up pretty good. And then 2009, I joined the military because I thought maybe this will be a little easier. So I took a break from real estate until about 2013. I started buying rentals again. And then I figured out how to wholesale houses to pay for college courses because the Army actually sent me to school to be an Army officer. And I chose a private college. So I was having to pay for the classes. It was super expensive. And the wholesaling was okay, but I would spend almost like $5,000 to turn around and make $6,000 or $7,000. It was not a profitable business for me. And I heard about land investing on a podcast and how you could pretty much double your money overnight. And I was like, okay, that is what I need. So I started mailing landowners, and it worked. It absolutely worked. I mean, the first deal, and we could talk about that, but it was a faster, profitable way. And I actually started paying down my rentals with the land money. It's crazy.
Very interesting. And so at this point in time, you are investing now. Well, you took a break, but it's about 6 years after you initially started investing back in 2007. And so what did the market look like at that time relative to when you were forced to kind of get out of the industry back in 2007, 2008?
2008, I'll tell you, like the market was still, it was like it actually started in early 07, but people didn't realize that. But when I got in about 2008, it was like on that peak to where it was just like now going down so fast. And I'll tell you, I was very unexperienced. I was listening to my broker. He said, go door knock. And I was door knocking. Ultimately, I was driving people around to find them a property to rent. And I would maybe, if I was lucky, make $300 in a week of driving multiple people around. And then I would get to these South Florida houses, and I would try to open up the windows and turn the air conditioner on and bring the Lysol because it stunk so bad. It's just like, I was like, this is not for me. I'm not doing this for the rest of my life. I need a change. So I threw in the towel. I totally quit. I was like, I'm out of here. And, there were some other things going on too. Like, I had resorted to having to move in with my in-laws because I couldn't afford my rent, and I was paying credit cards with credit cards. And and I was losing my self-confidence. I went from a business owner to a real estate license, had a real estate license, bought that rental property, just got married. And to ultimately, it's like, I got to move in with my in-laws because I can't afford to pay my bills. So it was a humbling experience in my life.
Absolutely. And so, fast forward another 5-6 years, 2013, you decided against doing the wholesaling, and now you end up in this asset class of vacant land. So what did that first transition kind of look like for you?
Yeah, 2013, I mentioned the first, marriage failing. I ended up coming back from Afghanistan, and I had to clear my house in Germany because we were living in Germany at the time with the military, and pretty much got rid of all my stuff, moved back to the United States, to Melbourne, Florida, bought the house next to the college, and did something called house hacking. I didn't know it was called that back then. Bigger Pockets, like, I think, coined the term or something. But I just got roommates, basically. I had a roommate in two of my rooms, and I kept the master suite with the ensuite bathroom because I was like, I'm over sharing bathrooms with people. I'm done with that. I was sharing the bathrooms with the Afghan, the local population. It was just like crazy. But I'm like, I'm going to have my own bathroom. I want the toilet to be clean every time I go in there. But I was making about $200 a month to live in that house. My roommates were paying the mortgage. It was building equity quick. And I was happy. I had amazing roommates. One of my roommates, he actually mined Bitcoin, not at the house though. He had his own place. He's retired now. But I had discretionary income. I didn't have a mortgage because it was being paid for. And I took equity out of that house within a couple months and bought another rental property. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I put all this money into this rentals. I need to pay for classes now. So I went on PropStream, and I would find the notice of defaults or the list pendants, the people that are going to pre-foreclosure. I'll get a list and I go and knock on these doors and put sticky notes. And I learned this in some seminar, some sort. I was a seminar junkie back in, when I was learning real estate investing, and I read all the books. But I got some wholesale deals out of this. I would make 3,000 here, like 4,000 there. And that would pay for the courses. Well, 2015 time comes around. The Army only gave me 21 months to get a 4-year degree. Basically, they're all about efficiency. They're like, we're paying you. You hurry up. Well, they moved me and my wife out to Fort Lee, Virginia, where I've got a little training to do, and then we'd go. The next step after a few months was Fort Carson, Colorado, and this is the time frame when our first baby is born. And I go from gung ho in the military to like, I need to get out. And I heard that podcast about the guy flipping the land. And I was like, wait a minute, this is what I've been looking for. Cause I was listening to podcasts because I was searching for answers. I knew there was a better way. And I started mailing the tax delinquent list, the people that were behind on their taxes. And then we've improved that a little bit, but the rest is history.
That is incredible. And I really want to drive the point here too to our listeners that I think what set you up for all of the success moving forward from here was being in a position of financial strength on a personal standpoint, right? You were able to get yourself in a position where you house hacked and you eliminated the biggest expense in your budget, which was your housing expense. And in fact, you were able to get paid while living for free. And I also want to preface this by saying, good thing that he didn't do the Bitcoin mining over in your own property, because I'm sure your electricity bills must have been through the roof. But
trust me.
Yeah, good thing he did it. But needless to say, you were able to get in the position where you didn't have a housing expense, and that allowed you to take equity out of your home, buy another home, focus more of the money that you earn through your active income towards saving and investing in additional properties, and then eventually get into this buying land. So did you end up purchasing any other properties after this other house hack, or did you go straight into buying land from there?
Yeah, I did some. We purchased our house out in Colorado, and I still had roommates. One being my wife and a baby on the way, but they don't pay rent. So I had to kind of start paying that mortgage again. And then, I think that was it. We pretty much wholesaled a few. I was still trying the wholesaling thing, even though we moved to another market. But it was really hard because I would send out these letters, and we would be doing a training exercise out in the field, and we couldn't take our cell phone out there. So I could not return the phone calls. And then when I was on base, I really didn't have time. I would be there like 6 a.m. in the morning and leave about 6 p.m. at night. That doesn't leave a lot of time to talk to sellers of houses and go and sit on their dirty, stinky cat pee house, or their stinky couch in their cat pee house, and discuss like, why do you want to, like, that was the hardest thing, is talking people and, getting houses at a discount. Like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Land investing, I send a letter out. I send a purchase agreement out, and they send it back to me signed. Sometimes I don't even have to have a conversation with them. And some people will email, some people will text, some people will call just to verify that I'm not a scam, or just to cuss me out because I offended them by my lowball offer. But it's just amazing, the dynamic. It was more of a lifestyle business that I was looking to get into, because the whole house business, that was just a lot busier, time intensive. And then we can talk about flipping houses, way more time intensive.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Did you have experience with that as well? I mean, did you have any sort of little segue into flipping houses for some time?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been kind of a up and down roller coaster in my life, because here's the thing: you get house deals with land. A lot of times people will have land and they're like, oh yeah, I got this house too. And I got, as my grandmother would say, I got a little too big for my britches. And we got a little arrogant. And here's the problem with this business. Sometimes you're doing it just to feed your ego and you forget why you got into it was for the financial freedom and the time freedom and the time to spend with your family. And then before you know it, you're flipping 7 houses virtually. Because if I could buy and sell land virtually, I'm making good money over here. Why not flip houses virtually? So yeah, big mistake in my professional career. You mentioned Bitcoin. I bought 10 miners and I was mining Bitcoin for a little while. Another big loss. But here's what I'm getting to. When you make money, sometimes you think you've got the Midas touch and anything I touch turns to gold. Not true. Every time I have like this epiphany in life, I just have to go back to land what's actually making me the money. So I'm all over the place and I'm out of balance. And the whole reason for your podcast is to talk about time freedom, because I keep finding myself with my plate full again and I get all stressed out. And I was like, wait a minute, why did I start investing in the first place? Was for financial freedom and time freedom, not to have all these stresses, not to have this massive team. So we always, scaling is sometimes dangerous.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, our listeners need to rewind this in about 5 minutes and re-listen to that, because that was really, really good advice to anybody, because there's so much shiny object syndrome that can be had, right? I mean, as I said earlier, there's so many ways that you can be profitable in this real estate business. And a lot of times you really have to just start with yourself and determine what it is that you really want out of all of this.
So
And
true.
so for
You hit
someone,
it.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, for someone like, let's say they're really, they've hit the pay ceiling in their job and they're looking for a way to increase their earnings through an active form of income, then yes, maybe flipping houses, maybe wholesaling may be a better option for them if they felt that that's the pay ceiling. They've already hit their pay ceiling in their W-2, right? But if it's someone who has the capability of working their job, for instance, but are looking for ways to grow their wealth and earn back their time, then there may be other asset classes such as the ones that you have found that would work better for them. And
Yeah.
so when it comes to land investing, right, what does that kind of look like? I guess, what is there any sort of distressed owner similar to
Yeah.
a rundown property? What does this look like from an investor?
I don't want to say there's distress, but I love that you mentioned that shiny object syndrome. You really put a word to what I was trying to mention there, because, looking at the land business, we made a little over for the month of January, a little over 18,000 is what we collected in payments, and that's payments for raw vacant parcels of land. And you know how much time that took me to get those 18,000 in payments? Not a single second, because the payments come in. They go directly into our bank account. Now, sometimes our buyers of the land, they need to change their bank account or change, or they want to make an extra payment. They can do that online with the virtual system. And sometimes they want to talk to someone. So they talk to my executive assistant. Her name's Kelly. But that's going back to that, getting that time back. And, just the business that we set up originally, it's like, okay, why not focus more on that business that it takes hardly any time to get these payments to come in every single month? And I can talk about how we did that, but going to your question, these sellers are usually not distressed. They inherited the land. They bought it many years ago. Husband and wife are rolling through Colorado and they're like, oh man, we should buy some of this land. One day, maybe we'll build our second home out here or a cabin. And life happens. They have children and those children have children and they're paying for colleges. And they realize, it's been 20 years since we purchased that land. We've been paying all these taxes. This guy just sent us a letter. Let's just sell it to him. Those are our sellers. And does it always work like that? No, there's extremes. I just bought a piece of land from a developer. Why would a developer sell me land? Because he's old. He's 84 years old. He wants to play golf and enjoy his wife. He's not developing anymore. We just made a $78,000 assignment fee on that property where we got it under contract and assigned it to a multi-family home builder.
Holy cow. Okay, so a lot of these, it sounds like, are pieces of land that people have owned for some period of time, and they're never even necessarily thought about selling until you came across their doorstep on a piece of mail and said, hey, I have someone who's actually interested in buying this. I almost forgot that I had this. And so these are the type of people that you're buying this stuff from?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, like that example right there. Someone gave an example one time to me, a good friend of mine, Daniel Watson. He's done very well in vacant raw land. Also was an Army officer. He was a captain, he just got back from deployment in Korea. But he told me, he's like, Brent, here's a perfect example. Like, this guy has this classic car in his garage, and he's got it covered up. He's been one day, maybe for years, he's going to put a new engine in it. And now boxes are surrounding it. And there's just, you can't even get to the car anymore. And his wife goes out in the garage and she stubs her knee or hits her knee on the bumper and says, honey, you really got to get rid of this car or get it out of the garage because we can't put another thing in there. And the next day, that man receives our letter saying, hey, we'd like to buy that classic car at a fair price. Here's our offer. Call us or text us. God bless if you want to sell it. And he goes, you know what? I'm just going to get rid of it. That's the same thing that happens with vacant raw land. They're like, you know what? Let's just get rid of it. We no longer need it.
Right, absolutely. And so are these pieces of land from across the country, or is there a specific market that you like to focus on? I guess,
Yeah.
what is typically the strategy for these land investors?
I started in my own market that I was living in when I was stationed out of Fort Carson, Colorado. And I really started in my own backyard. I recommend when people start with about a 2 to 2.5 hour radius of where you currently live. And then I want you to go on Zillow or Redfin and go to the filters and click on sold, and then click on land, and then click on, the history. Like, let's look and see what's happened in the last 30 days. And now, granted, you have the area selected. Let's just say you live in Orlando, Florida. Well, hit the X on that Orlando so you can see the map. And now I want you to look for clusters of sold. So if it's Zillow, it's yellow dots. If it's Redfin, it's red dots. I'm looking for clusters, like a little pattern, almost like when we're shooting a gun at our target, we want to hit the bullseye. That's telling me where the land is in demand at. And once we click on each one of those, and you can do this with an Excel spreadsheet very easily or a piece of paper, I want you to know the price. I want you to write down the price and then the square foot, or price then acres. Because what we're doing with that is we're going to divide the price by the acres or the square foot in the neighborhood. We're micro focusing this. And now we're going to know what that land sells for by the square foot or by the acre. And that's how we figure out, okay, what's in demand, what size parcel's in demand. And now we can figure out how to make those offers. And then we go to PropStream. I already mentioned it once. And you can draw a map around the neighborhood and figure out who owns the vacant raw land in that area. And you can come up with your offers by sending them letters. It doesn't take a lot. 20 to 30 a day, you will do land deals.
Wow, that's pretty fascinating there. And as far as structuring the offer itself, is there a specific margin that you want to build in? Like, for instance, if you're flipping houses, you want to purchase it at 75% of the after repair value, right? So, including the purchase and rehab, right? Is there something similar to that for land that builds in the margins for yourself as an investor?
Yeah, super simple like that. I used to just it was funny because back in early 2016, when I really started implementing these letters, before I used to do postcards. Well, the letters are a lot easier because they just sign them and send them back. Well, I would do 30 cents on the dollar, and you wouldn't believe it. I would send out 100 of these and get one land deal. And then the land started getting in high demand in 2019, 2020, and things are coming back. Not to date your podcast, but land is starting to go back down in value. So I'm really only going about 3 months out when I look at comparable properties and what they're selling for. I'm not going past that. But the range I like to be in, and you could do this so many ways, but I like to reverse engineer it. I say, okay, the land's selling for about $100,000 for 1 acre. And I want to make $10,000. I'm making these numbers up. I want to make $10,000. And then let's just say that I want to sell this really quickly. So my buyer's going to want a discount so I can sell it fast. Let's just say I list it with a realtor. If everything's selling for 100, I'm going to list mine at 94,000. It's not a house. This one's got a pool. This one's got granite. Which one do we choose? No, this one's got dirt. This one's got dirt and it's 4,000 less or 6,000 less. Let's buy this one. So my stuff's getting purchased faster than anybody else's. And then sometimes, even better, if I can offer seller financing. And that's where I earn huge on the back end. Sometimes I get more in interest from these payments than the actual sales price, because the banks have figured out how to do these mortgages and 30-year mortgages. Yes, I do 30-year mortgages, but they don't ever go 30 years. They pay off way sooner. Like the first 10 years is interest only on a 30-year mortgage. Like that's a whole nother podcast. But going back to how I'm getting the profit. So I want to make 10,000. Let's just say my buyer wants 10,000 off. So, all right, we're not whipped from 100 to 90 for me to make 10,000 to 80 for my buyer to get 10,000 off. What about the realtor? 6% interest on 100 grand, that's 6 grand. So now we need to be another 6 grand. So what is that? 74,000. All right. What about closing costs of $1,000? So we're at 73,000. I can't think of any other expenses. No repair costs, no renovations. So we're at 73 cents on the dollar at this point. So, all right, selling for 100,000 was 73% of 100. We got to send that offer for $73,000. And that gives me my $10,000 profit, gives the realtor his commission or her commission. And I'm not using any realtor. I'm looking at the realtor that's selling all the land in the area. Like, I don't want just any, Robert has a real estate license. No, Robert doesn't do land though.
That's very straightforward, and I appreciate you kind of breaking that down for us and our listeners here. So it sounds like you really structure in all of the associated fees with it, but the good thing is you don't have to, as you mentioned, worry about any sort of maintenance, any sort of capital expenditures. This is like raw land, right? This is not even the developed land yet ready to build on. Is this just like trees and
That's right.
all of that stuff that's on it? Okay.
So me and my dad, yes. To answer your question, yes. Me and my dad purchased a parcel in his area because I started, like when I was in Colorado, the way I was able to move to Florida was my dad was in a certain area of Florida, a little bit lesser expensive land. We started buying where he's at. I got my dad in the land business too. Well, we bought one on Friday of last week. And he's like, hey, I got a buddy that will go in and clear this lot for $900. And I was like, oh man, maybe we should do that. It'll sell faster. Call my realtor. He sells all the land out there. He sells probably 5 parcels a week. He goes, don't touch it. Leave it. Like, don't touch it. Leave it how it is. And I was like, okay. So I told my dad, don't worry about it. And his friend's like, listen, I'll wait till you close on it, till you sell it to get paid. Don't touch it. Some people like the trees. Some people don't. Leave it be.
Interesting. Very interesting. And so what does it look like for you now? I mean, in terms of, managing your personal life with family, you're buying and selling land. Are you still with the military right now, or have you since left and been able to just stick to doing this stuff full time?
Completely exited out of the military in 2018. And that first month I was gone, I was so scared. I was like, oh, because it took me, I hit $9,000 a month in payments and I haven't really explained how I've done that. I want to explain that, but it took me almost 9 months from implementing the land strategy. And I was learning so fast and making so many mistakes. And I won't say I was profitable in 9 months, but I was getting $9,000 a month in payments coming in every single month from the land. So that allowed me to get out, but I was so scared. I was like, what if this doesn't work? Well, 2018, I got out that first month. I had a $55,000 a month because I basically got a bunch of parcels of land under contract and sold them to cash buyers, my actual purchase agreements, not the land. So if that makes sense, I was assigning the contract. I would find the cash buyers. How was I finding the cash buyers of land? I would go to the county assessor's website and see the LLCs that were purchasing the land. I would look at who is purchasing this land and I would look for patterns. Oh man, this guy. And then I went on Batch Leads. If you go to Batch Leads Brent, you can start skip tracing these people. And now they have a feature. You can see where the cash transactions are happening. So I don't even have to go to the assessor site anymore. It's like technology has made my life so much easier. So
that's incredible. So it sounds like your wholesaling land is essentially what it sounds like. Am I getting that right? I mean,
yeah.
you're getting a land under contract and you're just assigning it to a cash buyer.
Yep. That's how you build your bank account very quickly. But where the time freedom comes in is you wholesale 2 or 3 of these, get your bank account to $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, and then you purchase that parcel of land for $10,000. It's worth about $30,000. Why would someone sell a $30,000 parcel of land for $10,000? I stopped asking why a long time ago. Like, why do people bring Rolexes and pawn them at pawn shops? Like, why do people do that? I have no clue, but I just assume it's for speed and convenience. So we buy it for $10,000 and we sell or finance it for $30,000. So we get a $5,000 down payment, or maybe $10,000 sometimes. And we get our money back out of the deal. That's the perfect scenario. Or maybe I don't have the $10,000. Well, mother-in-law has $10,000. We pay her 9% interest on her money. Well, Bob the buyer wants this piece of land. It's worth $30,000. He's willing to pay $30,000 all day long. So he puts $5,000 down. So we take that money, we pay mother-in-law down. We now only owe her $5,000 and we're paying her 9% interest. But Bob the buyer is paying 30, he bought it for 30. He paid $5,000 down. So now he has $25,000 mortgage at 9 to 12% interest is what we usually get. So we're getting 12% interest on $25,000 and we're paying 9% interest on $10,000 to mother-in-law. So there's another way to do it. And that's where the time freedom comes in. That's why we get $18,000 a month, every single month coming in. And they're not tenants. They're not calling because the toilet won't flush or the air conditioner's not working, the water's not hot anymore. None of those calls happen. So you can scale this. Like, we have 79 notes, and my executive assistant might work a couple hours a week on this. Maybe.
That's incredible. Like the amount of time that's involved with this seems significantly less on an ongoing basis compared to so many other asset classes within the real estate space.
Yep.
There's two questions I want to unpack here. One is with regards to financing. And that question is specifically on the interest rate. So it sounds like you're able to ask for anywhere from 9 to 12% interest by seller financing a piece of land. So the question that comes to me is like, what does it look like if you were to have a bank finance these type of properties where people would take that type of offer?
I don't know what it looks like because I don't think banks will finance land that's under like $100,000.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
So
oftentimes
I'm the only person.
You have to just buy cash. Yeah.
Yeah, you buy cash, and that's why land trades so much lower, or it's a lot of seller financing, private financing. There was one time when I used to sell this stuff at 0% interest because I was like, oh man, like 0% interest. That way people buy from us. Well, that's crazy because like I did one that was at 4% because I had to pay interest. I had to pay interest. I paid someone else 4%. And I saw in my note servicing that we made $9,000 in interest. That it was, I think, in 2018. I was like my eyes lit up. Even though I actually didn't make that money in interest, I paid it to someone else. I saw the possibility because we had almost $1 million worth of notes. And I was like, what if $1 million was earning, 6% interest? And you could do the math on their phone, and I'm going to do it right now. But this was the epiphany I had in like several years ago. So $1 million times 6%, that's $60,000 a year that you're making in interest. Divide that by 12, that's $5,000 a month in pure, that's like printing money, pure printing money. That is not the payback. Plus, we're also building our profit in. Remember, I bought it for $10,000. I'm selling it for $30,000. So there's profit there, plus the profit on the interest, plus we're charging a note service fee of $20 a month, plus a documentation fee. Like, it's crazy. Like, you could just make numbers up. I'm not saying take advantage of people. I'm just saying you can just create money out of thin air with this business.
That's fantastic. And I mean, it really goes to show that a lot of it is taking advantage of the different ways you can take advantage of a transaction, right? So you can make profits, just pure capital gains on the sale. You can also implement seller financing on there. So now you're getting this passive income on a month-to-month basis. And on top of that, if you leverage other people to help finance your purchase of that piece of land, now you're also making a spread without any of your own capital within the deal. So that's
so
amazing.
True. That's so true. And I'm glad you mentioned the private financing because for a while there, I hid what I was doing in the military because you're not allowed to have an additional business, especially when you're an Army officer. And I wish I would have told my other officer friends about this. But now that I share this on Facebook and podcasts, I had a lady call me the other day. She goes, Brent, I need a stream of income from my money. It's sitting in a self-directed IRA. It's like making like nothing. Can you put it to work? So we pay her 12% interest on her money. And like, I love when people like this call me. So we're giving her 12% interest. And we just did a deal where it was $13,000. Not much. So I'm only paying her $135 a month. But at the end of that year, she now has an extra $1,500 that she made in interest. So now she has $14,500. And the following year, she's going to have like $16,000. And she's like looking at it grow. And she's like, I have another 150 grand sitting over here. I didn't even know about the 150 grand. She only told me about 13,000. So, and I'm loving it because I'm borrowing her 13,000 and I'm selling it for 37,000. Some of it's quick flip. Some it's the seller financing, which I can do because her payments, $135 a month in interest only, and I'm collecting almost 200 over here. So it's that positive arbitrage as well. And it's not like a house. There's nothing to repair. Like houses are like apples that hit the ground. They either rot or something's going to eat it.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And so, you've done a really great job of outlining all of these different creative ways to be profitable with land investing. But the one thing I want to ask you about now is, what are the downsides, right? Like, how do you protect your downside when it comes to purchasing land? Like, what are the different things to take into consideration?
Yeah, I just mentioned the houses that rot. There's a reason why the IRS has written, I forget what it's called, but anyhow, they give us what's called depreciation on buildings and houses and rentals. You can do cost segregations if you have a smart CPA, and ultimately you can pay like no money in taxes if you buy buildings and houses. Land does not work that way. When I turn around and seller finance this stuff, I'm getting charged ordinary income taxes. Now, what's cool about the seller financing is they gave a stipulation in our IRS tax code, and I forget what form it is, but anyhow, we have to do every one of our notes, all 79 of them. We have to show what we took in that year, and we only pay taxes on what we actually were paid. So we have that advantage, but the other side of it, we're paying high taxes. We're paying ordinary income, not capital gains, not long-term, but ordinary income. So it's a little higher tax rate. So we take that money from the land payments and we bought our office building. We bought a second home / vacation rental. So you start using cost segregation. We pretty much have to buy a building each year. Sometimes a little bit more
what
expensive.
A problem to have.
Yeah. And what's cool is rather than let's just say we spent our tax money, because I'll mention the book. I'll wait for that question. We spent our tax money last year because I didn't have this system set in place. So I had to go and do a subject to existing financing deal. Like I had to talk the seller into letting me keep the mortgage on the property in their name because I spent the 50 grand that I needed in tax money. And we bought like a $390,000 house and it saved us so much money in taxes. That's way more advanced. You need a CPA that's familiar with cost segregation and know what subject to existing financing is, but that's another rabbit hole. But yeah, it's crazy. You don't get the tax benefits for land. So there's the answer.
Gotcha. So no tax benefits for land, tax at ordinary income. And a huge problem is you may have to just purchase another real estate asset using all the money that you're making through land, unfortunately, right? And I say this sarcastically, but you have to purchase something else so that way you can benefit from all of those tax benefits to take against this income.
They help by
what
buying
happens
our
if you
office.
don't sell too? Yeah, absolutely. The other question is, have you ever encountered a situation where you had difficulty selling a piece of land?
Yeah. I got a little arrogant. Again, I talked about the ego multiple times. I was buying some of this stuff at like 10 cents on the dollar. And in one area, if I would offer half the assessed value, which I no longer do that anymore. And that would mean I was getting the land at like 10 cents on the dollar. And I was like, $3,300. The seller called me. I was like, yeah, no brainer. I wired her the money. She sent me a quick claim deed, and come to find out, and I had this land sold already for $35,000. Like I called a couple buyers, and come to find out, it was a huge crater in the ground in Woodland Park, Colorado. And also to make it even worse, like this crater in the ground, it was like it was like on the side of a cliff. So the only person that could build a house would be like a house on stilts. It would have been cool. This was before treehouse Airbnbs were something popular, but that was the plan for this buyer. Well, then we found out that it had a cloud on the title because it was bought through a tax lien sale. So little things like that, it made that land where I couldn't sell it. And finally, I found a buyer on Craigslist that bought it from me for the same price I paid for it on monthly payments at $100 a month. It took roughly 33 months. So there's been parcels of land that I've made huge mistakes on, and I was still able to sell it with that gift of seller financing.
Wow. Fascinating stuff here. All right, folks. Well, we're coming towards the end of today's show, but before we finish, it is time for the Freedom Five. These are 5 questions that we ask every guest in our show, starting with the most important question. What is your why? What is the underlying motivation behind everything it is that you do?
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely my family and just my children, and just being able to do things that we want to do to kind of give them, the life that I wanted as a child. Now, did I have it bad as a child? No, we had it great. Like, we had everything we needed. But my why is just to have many really fun memories with my wife and my children over the next, 15 years while they're still in the house.
Love that. Second question we have here. What book has had the largest influence on your life?
Man, can I mention 2? One was The Wealthy Gardener, amazing book, The Wealthy Gardener. And then the second one was Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. That's
All
why
right.
I talked about the tax thing.
Yeah, both of those books have definitely come up multiple times in conversation with people. I still have yet to check that out, but I've heard great things.
Right there on my desk.
There it is. Profit First. All right, third question we have here. What is the most impactful thing, whether it's a piece of technology, a habit, or a person, that has helped in freeing up your time?
Yeah, I would say coaches. Just getting a coach, because coaches compound time. They compress time. I can stand on the shoulders of giants. So I hired a business coach to get me, more profitable business that runs by itself, that I can sell one day, that I get my time back. Coaches in physical fitness and nutrition, coaches on marriage and spiritual counseling, how to be a better husband. I don't know if anybody else has this problem, but sometimes, like, I'm not the best husband. I let other things come and, how do I say it? I might be focused more on closing that deal than, making that time with my husband or with my wife as a husband and my children. So, just coaches, like coaches from people coaching it, they're where I want to be.
I love that. Yeah, we always talk about the concept of leverage here, and I just had another guest on our show last week, Ramil Torres, and we talked about a very similar thing where if you want to grow, there's only 24 hours in a day, right? And if you want to continue growing at a pace where you can fulfill all the responsibilities in your life, not just from a financial standpoint, but even from a personal standpoint, sometimes it takes you leveraging the expertise and the time of others to help you get there. And so if someone is at a certain level of personal fitness where you want to be, as you had mentioned, or someone is at a level of financial strength that you want to be, maybe it may be worth leveraging the expertise of them to help get you to where you want to go as well.
Yeah, so true. We can always get more time. I'm sorry, we can always get more money, but we can't get more time.
Absolutely. Fourth question we have here. What is the number one piece of advice you would give to anyone looking to achieve more control over their time?
Start getting serious about it. Start by time blocking yourself. What am I going to do for this next hour? It can start small, and then track what you're doing in 15-minute segments. You might find that you're scrolling Facebook, or you're watching Netflix, or answering emails that don't need answered right now. And maybe it's like you can change the email answering to first thing in the morning or late at night during non-working hours, as far as when you could be talking to a buyer or a seller. So 1, just getting serious about it and tracking what you do. And then 2, time blocking.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, very quickly can scrolling through Facebook turn from like a 15-minute thing to like an hour to hour and a half. It's pretty dangerous. I've
Yes.
had to actually delete the app from my phone. I did this several years back when I was still in school because I found that it kept distracting me from what I needed to do. Did you kind of
So
experience the same
true.
thing?
Oh yeah, one morning I was at the breakfast table, in the kitchen, and it was a Sunday, and the kids were running around the house. My wife was like doing something. I don't even know what was going on. I was just glued. And I picked up my phone for something besides to go on Facebook, and I looked up, and I was like, "Where did the last 7 minutes go?" And I was like, "That's it. No more scrolling. I'm no longer a consumer. I'm going to be a creator." So I do post on Facebook, and I've had someone else start helping me with it, but I don't consume. I don't reply to people's stuff. I mean, that sounds arrogant and probably rude, but I'm not on there like to consume other people's stuff.
Right. No, I love that. That's another way you can shift it into a tool to help grow your business too.
Oh
Is
yeah, it's been an
definitely that.
amazing tool for growing.
All right, Brent, fifth and final question we have here. What is the best way for our listeners to get in contact with you?
No, as I mentioned, Facebook. I'm on Facebook, Brent L. Bowers. I do read my private messages though. I do respond to those. Yeah, I mean, I'll say the easiest way is to Facebook, or I just started TikToking, to where I talk about how to buy and sell raw vacant land. What is land investing? Brent L. Bowers one. And if someone's interested in, joining the Land Sharks community and having me hold your hand to build a business, build a land investing business that will serve you and your families, give you that time freedom and financial freedom, head on over to thelandsharks.com.
I love it. Well, Brent, tons of really good information today. I loved how you shared your experience with the traditional forms of real estate investing, such as wholesaling, purchasing rental properties, and why you decided to ultimately go into the land investment strategy that suited best for you and your family. I loved how you described the need to earn back your time because of your growing family and the experience that you were having while working full-time in the military. And I also loved how you talked about the ins and outs of land investing, as well as sharing some of the creative ways to really skyrocket your profitability. I just want to thank you so much for being a fantastic guest on our show, and I really look forward to remaining in touch.
God bless, Chris.
Now, if you like this show and want to learn more about how we can help you free up your time through passive real estate investments, check out www.freedominvesting.com. Make sure to subscribe to our monthly newsletter and schedule an introductory call with our team. We also have a free 7-day course on what passive real estate investing is and how to get started so that you can start your journey towards earning back more time in your life. To all of our amazing listeners here on the Freedom Investing Podcast, my name is Chris Toribio. Till next time.